Hi! You'll be watching lots of videos with me going over math. But in this video, I'm going to go over how our class will work. I'm going to switch from my camera to my computer screen so I can show you some things now.
There'll be a lot of videos like this where you'll see me writing on the computer screen. And one important thing is that you should really be taking some notes. You can do that using the course outlines that are provided in Canvas, or you can just take notes on a notebook. But there's a lot of research that shows that actually writing things down is going to help you retain what you need to know. All right, so the first thing on here that it says is, what is this class about? So let's talk a little bit about that. Calculus is really about taking ideas that you've learned in previous classes like algebra and geometry and making those ideas more dynamic. So by more dynamic, what we mean is that we introduce ideas of motion and change. And so we're going to study a lot of ideas that have foundations in previous math classes you've taken. So that's why we do a lot of review content at the beginning. But then we're going to introduce these ideas that allow that information to become more dynamic, so motion and change. And so that's how we get calculus. So we'll see exactly how that works more throughout this semester, but that's one way to understand what calculus is really about. All right, so this next part here, I'm going to switch to Canvas and look at student view instead of writing here on the screen, but you should be taking some notes about what I'm talking about as I'm going through that content in Canvas. All right, so here I have Canvas and I'm in student view, so it has this pink margin around the outside here, but this should look like what you're seeing. And so I just want to show you a few important things. So if you found this video, you've already found some of them. You should be in modules and you should have already clicked the getting started first thing there that will unlock everything else in the course. All right, so there's all kinds of information here. Every module starts with a screen like this that has some important things on it, a list of stuff to do for the week, so stuff that you need to do for the week. And as soon as this video is done, it's going to be placed there where it says course overview video. All right, so a list of things to do. Please take the time to read this. That's why I made it so that you have to do this part to unlock the rest. So it tells you kind of what's going to be happening for the week and what assignments there are for the week. And then the other thing that's at the bottom of each of these is a suggested daily schedule. So this suggested daily schedule basically is what my suggestion would be for you to stay well ahead of the deadlines. One thing about a class like this is that I do tend to have deadlines only twice a week, but that doesn't mean you should really be working on your math only twice a week. So you'll see a suggested daily schedule of what you should be doing each week. That doesn't mean that's when those things are due. There are some students who just look at due dates and decide to start on the content the day it's due or the day before it's due, and if that's the case, you're going to find yourself too far behind. So I would really suggest that you look at these suggested daily schedules that are at the bottom of this front page on each module and make sure you use that to help you figure out what you're going to do each day. It's important to make sure that you plan time each day to go through the content. Sometimes I have students who try to cram it all into the weekend or the day it's due, and those students often end up too far behind to learn the material and be successful. So please try to make sure that you're planning time. You don't have to stick with this suggested daily schedule, but it just kind of can be a way to gauge yourself. You're about halfway through the work for the week or whatever. All right, so once you look at the front page in each module, you can go back to the module and you'll find some other things in there. So I'm going to actually go to the week 1 module, which is the first place where there is math. And you'll notice in this one as well that when you open that front page, there's some information at the top and then this suggested daily schedule. So I went ahead on this one and put in the Monday and Tuesday that were part of the Getting Started module, and then the things that you should be working on in this module, which is the math. So you'll notice that there are a couple days where it says watch more videos and takes notes as needed. and try to complete up through what part of the homework. And there's links in here to all the different videos and content. All right, I'm going to actually click the link here for Friday, August 26th, which is the first non-review math unit that we're going to be looking at. In each module, you'll find a page that has notes, outline, and videos for the different sections of material through the week. And the material that you're learning, you'll find that there is a page of notes. You can get a notes packet from the bookstore that has all of the notes outlines in it, printed already, and so you can buy that from the bookstore, or you can download them or print them out yourself if you have good access to a reasonably cheap printer. But you should be using these to help you take notes on the content for the week. So when I say you should be taking notes as you go through the videos, this is what you should be using to help yourself take notes. You don't have to do that. You can take notes in a notebook yourself, but there are often graphs or other things in there that you'll find it probably helpful to use. So make sure that you have access to those notes outlines either by getting the notes packet from the bookstore or downloading or printing the PDFs in Canvas. I don't care which way you access it, but you really do need to have access to that. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of research that talks about writing out your notes, really helping you to remember what you're trying to learn. All right, the other thing that I want to talk about is that we will be using MyMathLab. I'm going to go back to modules here. And one of the first things that you're supposed to do in the Getting Started module, which is kind of getting set up for the course here, is to set up a MyMathLab account. So we will be using MyMathLab for online homework, and that's also access to your e-textbook. So I'm going to click here. This tells you how to set up MyMathLab. You'll be clicking on the MyLab and Mastering link at the side and follow the instructions. One thing that I really want to highlight here is that there is a free 14-day trial. It mentions right there in the center of the screen, free 14-day trial. You have to scroll way to the bottom when it asks for payment to ask for the free trial. My suggestion is that you use that until you're sure you're going to stay in the course. And then there are several different pricing options depending on whether you're just going to do this for a single semester or multiple semesters. If you have any questions about which kind of license you should purchase for MyMathLab, let me know and I'll be glad to have a conversation with you about that. For many of you though, just the one semester, the cheapest option is probably going to be sufficient. If you are taking Calculus 2 and or 3, and especially if you're going to take that online, it might be worth looking at some other options. But anyway, MyMathLab. So be sure you understand about MyMathLab. All right, I'm going to go back here to the modules. So for this first week, notice, by the way, on the modules, there's an arrow here, so you can collapse and uncollapse these so that you don't end up with such a cluttered screen. But for this first week, there are really two modules. The course overview, getting started module, which is over the syllabus and getting the course set up, and then the actual math is in the week 1 module. Usually we will just have one. So I'm going to go to the one that has the math content in it. This will be what your usual weekly modules look like. So you'll have an overview at the top and links to the notes, outline, and videos for each section, a link to the textbook there. And this week I also have a link to a review textbook, an online good source textbook to help with review if you need that. And then after you've watched the videos and taken notes, you'll see the assignments down here. So for this first week, we have 2 MyMathLab assignments. There's a due date on there, and that shows the due date. I do have these automatically open for a little bit past the due date so that you can still submit them for late credit. But that's the official due date. If you stick with the daily schedule though, you should have them done well ahead of the due date. So I encourage you to try to stay on top of that. The other thing that you will have due most weeks is a written checkup assignment, except exam weeks. Written checkup assignment. So this is written work. The idea is that your exams will be written, and so this is a way to practice for the exams. So each week you'll have one of these. There are printed copies of these in the notes packet. If you buy the notes packet from the bookstore or print out the entire notes packet, there are printed copies in there. So this one's near the end of the Unit 1 content. But You can also download or print them individually. They're always 4 pages, so if you scroll here to the bottom, you'll see it says page 1 of 4. That's just helpful to always know there's 4 pages. And this is math that you will write out and submit electronically. These are due on Wednesdays each week. The assignment is open a little bit past that if you have a late submission. But the due date is always Wednesday on these written checkups. And so it says in Canvas when they're due, but it also says here at the top when each of those is due. All right, so anyway, you'll print this out and do this. You can do it on separate paper if you want. If you've bought the printed notes packet, you can do it on there. Sometimes it's easier to just go ahead and do it on here than on notebook paper, but either way is really okay with me as long as it's organized and I can find your work. So some students prefer to just do it on separate paper and take pictures of that and upload that. All right, so after you do the written checkup, let me close this. After you've completed it, you'll go ahead and I'm going to click Start Assignment here. So when you've done it, you're going to use something to scan your work. I'll go show you where there's some hints about scanning your work, and have a scan, and you'll then be able to upload your file, choose a file from wherever it is, and then click Submit Assignment. I'll give you feedback in there on your written work. I'll post an answer key after a couple days after it's due once everybody's gotten theirs submitted. So you'll be able to see how you're doing on that. This is good practice for how your exams will be. Okay, I'm going to go here and talk to you a little bit about scanning your work. So I'm back here in the Getting Started module. And so in the Getting Started module, it says there are several things to read. So the syllabus, be sure you read that, or you can click over here for an electronic version. We'll talk about the master schedule later, but right now I'm going to click on this written work in an online class. So this just explains a little bit about why you're doing written work and different ways to actually do the written work. So why is there written work? There are a couple of reasons there. And how will you do your written assignments? So you'll do your written assignment on separate paper, either on the printed copies of the checkup assignments or on notebook paper is okay. Most students use a scanner app on their phone. And so there's some information here about a couple of apps that I like to use, but I don't really care what app you use. Be sure that you've written neatly enough so that when you scan it, it comes through on the scan. So some students write very light. If you tend to write very light, you might want to try to write a little bit darker, or you can maybe adjust the settings on your app to account for that. If you're doing notebook paper instead of the actual printed checkup, be sure that you've numbered your problems so I can find problem 1 and problem 5 and so on. But when you scan it, your scan should be a PDF with all the pages in one file, not one file for each page, not a JPEG. It has to do with how I can pull them out and grade them. If all the pages are together as one file and they're a PDF, it's very quick for me to easily annotate and grade them. All right, so there are a lot of apps that do a great job, and this is a handy thing to have on your phone anyway, just for other reasons. I have an iPhone and use TurboScan, and so that's a pretty nice one. I use the free version of that. Adobe Scan, Adobe also has an app that works well on either Android or iPhones. The Notes app on iPhones will also create PDF scans. You can find other ones in the App Store for your phone. I would just recommend looking at the reviews and looking for a free or very inexpensive version. All right, and then there are some tips here. Make sure you have good contrast. So contrasting table or desk. Use an app to take a picture. If you choose the right option in your app, it should detect the edges of the page. If you're getting a picture of your entire table, like it shows here in my phone, then you're just taking pictures. But the app should have an option where it detects the edges of the page to make just a scan of the paper, and you can adjust those margins usually if you want. You might need to adjust the contrast. My writing here is very light, and so you might need darker contrast so you might need to fiddle with that. Just make sure that you can see it with the scan. These screenshots are for TurboScan. There's a plus to add a page, and to name a file, delete a page, save, and so on. So just look at these instructions. It can help give you some hints. Sometimes students are pretty tech savvy or already know how to scan either using their phone or a scanner, so that's fine if you already know how, but if you need some pointers on how to scan, this is a good way to do that. All right, going back here to modules, the other thing I want to point out that's here in these important documents right below written work and as an online class is the entire packet, notes packet as a PDF. This is what you would get if you order from the bookstore. So the entire thing is there. If you have access to a printer and you can just download the entire thing and print that out, you're welcome to do that. I do separate it out into the individual sections and put in the individual places where it makes sense. So you can also print them as individual sets as well. All right, so I'm going back here to the modules. Most weeks you'll have 4 main things due, and they're kind of split up this week because we have the Getting Started module and then the math content, but the 4 main things that are due are My Math Lab homework, a written checkup, and then you will also have a quiz and a discussion each week. So usually those will just be in the weekly module, but for this week the quiz and the discussion are in the Getting Started module. So most weeks the quizzes and discussions are due on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. They are all open a little bit past when they are due for late submissions. For this first week though, I want to stress that there are 3 things due on Sunday night at midnight that you must complete, or you'll be dropped from the class for non-attendance. So please be sure that you pay attention to those due dates for the first week. There is a master schedule up here. I'll maybe point that out here. A master schedule. This is also in the printed notes packet, but it has a schedule of when all assignments are due for the entire semester. So this can be helpful to save or print out just so you're staying on track. From going back to modules, one other thing that I want to stress, you should read the syllabus. I'm going through some of the information from the syllabus right now, but be sure that you also read the syllabus. I want to talk a little bit here. I'm going to click on course overview and grading. So this kind of talks about some of the things I've already discussed. Plan several hours a day, be organized, what's in Canvas, notes, outline, and videos, my math lab homeworks, and then a written checkup, a quiz, and a discussion. So there's a lot more detail in here than what I've discussed in the video. But one thing I want to mention here is what is highlighted here in item number 9. So we do have 3 on-campus exams, so you can see the dates here. The first one is Monday, September 19th, 6 to 8 p.m. in GEB 233. That's a fairly large auditorium, so we will be able to spread out in case COVID is a problem. There's plenty of space in that room and it'll just be our class in there. So these 3 Mondays, September 19th, October 17th, and November 7th, you need to plan to be at JCCC at 6 p.m. for your exam. Exam 4 is a take-home exam. It'll be like your written checkup assignments. You'll submit it similarly. And then we do have our final exam Monday, December 5th. That's scheduled a little bit later according to the college's final exam schedule, and we don't have a room assignment yet for that. So just to be aware of that we do have those on-campus exams. All right, and if you are taking notes with your note sheet, you'll notice that that last item on that first page of the Getting Started course overview note says exams and calculators. So I want to talk a little bit about calculators for the class and what's allowed on the exams. So I'm going to go back to the main syllabus page here. And the information about calculators is here in the course information. You should read through the whole syllabus here just to make sure that you're clear about everything. But I'm going to scroll down here to where it talks about technology and specifically calculators. So a graphing calculator might be useful, but it is not required for this class. I will have some that you can borrow for on-campus exams. They are TI-84s that we have available here for loan. If you prefer to use one that you're used to using, it might be worth it to make sure you have one of your own. So if you already have a TI-84, it's a common model that a lot of students have from high school. that will be fine. You can use other models as well, as long as the calculator you're wanting to use does not have a CAS or computer algebra system. We don't allow those on our exams. So there's a few examples here of calculators that have those that are not allowed. So you can't use your phone or a computer as a calculator on an exam. You can use whatever for your homework, but just remember that if you're relying on something that you're not going to have access to during an exam, then you're not preparing yourself well for exams. So I would be sure that whatever you're using, it doesn't have more functionality than something you would be allowed to use during an exam. We do rent TI-84 graphing calculators for $25 a semester. There's a link to the Math Resource Center webpage for how to get started with renting a calculator. All right, I'm going to go back to the notes, and we're going to talk a little bit about some items that are here on the second page. All right, so this information is in the syllabus, but I'm just going to write a couple things here on the screen just to highlight some of that. So you have two main due dates each week. This first week's a little bit different because we do have some attendance guidelines, and those are due Sunday at midnight. But generally, you're going to have My Math Lab homeworks, and those are due Mondays at 5. And then you have your written checkup, and you have a quiz and a discussion, and those are usually due Wednesdays at 5. All of those assignments are open, so they are available to submit through Thursday at midnight, or actually 11:59 p.m. So they are all open through Thursday at 11:59 p.m. to submit for full credit. It will be flagged as late by Canvas, so it'll be identified there as late, but there won't be any points deducted as long as you have it submitted by Thursday at midnight. I don't mind giving some short extensions occasionally if you have a super crazy week or something that is going on that you need a short occasional extension. So just reach out to me if you need an extension beyond Thursday at 11:59 p.m. If that's ongoing or more than a very rare occurrence, then we need to have a discussion about how you can stay better on track. One important thing is that I do post answer keys for things like the written checkup, and I can't post the answer key until everyone has submitted it. So if we have people constantly submitting things late, that bogs everyone down and they're not really able to see their answer key or how they did because other people are too far behind. So I'm not going to allow extensions all the time, but every week there's an automatic extension through Thursday at 11:59 p.m. for all those assignments. But if you're relying on that on a regular basis, you're going to find that you're too far behind, and when it comes time for exams, you're not going to be ready for your exams. All right. So let's talk a little bit about exams. So you need to be sure that you plan to be there to take the exam when it's scheduled. The college currently has this as the model for delivering our exams, that if you need to take a written exam, that has to be taken in person on a specific schedule. I know that things occasionally happen, and so in an emergency situation, I will allow you to take one makeup exam. You will have to take that with me. So you'll need to make arrangements to take that with me within 2 days. So you'll need to contact me to figure out when and how we're going to do that makeup exam within 2 days. Beyond that, if that can't happen and you can't get it taken within 2 days, your final can replace your one lowest unit exam. And so if you have a missed unit exam, your final can replace that one. But in general, you need to be sure that you're planning to be on campus and taking exams as scheduled. Most students manage to do that. All right, academic honesty expectations. Please look through the syllabus in the section that's JCCC policies and caveat statements. There's a statement about academic honesty. Basically, it boils down to don't cheat, and then you won't have to worry about that. My advice about that is just to understand that you don't need to cheat. many students pass this class without cheating, and you are no different. You can pass this class and do well without needing to cheat. So just learn the content and don't cheat. But if you do, there are penalties and they will be enforced. All right, a couple other things to talk about here. We do have weekly study sessions in the Math Resource Center or also available on Zoom. I'm still waiting on a room announcement for that, but Mondays 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. That's a good time to get help. You should be done or nearly done with your My Math Lab homework by then, and hopefully getting a little bit of a start on your written checkup assignment and or quiz or discussion. If you're following that daily schedule, you will have already spent some time working on your written checkup by Monday late afternoon. So that's a good time to come and get some questions answered or just go over things if you're having any trouble with that. So please do that. You're also welcome to drop in my office hours. I have Zoom or in-person office hours, and I also have appointments. Many students find that this is a great way to get help and get over being stuck on some kind of topic. All right, this last little section that I want to talk about is really just about kind of thinking about math and learning math. All right, so first of all, I want you to think about, and maybe you've already thought about this before, but that math is really a language. And so it's a way of communicating ideas. So there are a lot of things that are important in any kind of language: syntax, punctuation kinds of things, using the correct symbols, right? You don't use a question mark when you mean an exclamation mark. And so the same thing is true in math, that you have to use the right symbols to communicate the right ideas. And the other important part about that is that justification is important. So when you kind of start to think about math as a language, then it, I guess, becomes more apparent, I think, that why you need to pay attention to things like symbols and justification. All right, this next one is a quote that I took from somewhere, but it's about laying claim to your personal charge for learning. Especially in a class like this, I can't always see when students have a look of confusion on their face, and so I can't always see when students are confused and need extra help. So please seek out help when you need it. Even if you're not sure that you need help, if you're just kind of unsure about something, please seek out that help. Use my office hours and appointments as a way to get that. Especially in an online class like this, I can't always tell when students need help, so you really have to seek that out. All right, the next item here is about productive struggle and brain growth. So just like your muscles when you're trying to get in shape for any kind of athletic event or just to do something cool like a handstand or something like that, right? If you're trying to get in shape for that, you have to condition yourself to do that. And it's the same with your brain. There's all kinds of brain research about the exact kind of Goldilocks zone of a productive struggle. So not too much that you're overwhelmed, but not too little that it doesn't give you a workout, and how that exact right amount of productive struggle actually helps grow dendrites in your brain. So the key thing is to make sure that you are struggling a little bit and making progress, but not too much. And when it starts to become too much, be sure that you're going to seek out help if necessary. All right, using homework to learn. So it's easy to get the right answer in My Math Lab. There are many help features in My Math Lab, but answers correct is not the same thing as learning. So if you're using those help features in My Math Lab, be sure to write down the help features that they tell you. So if it gives you some sort of explanation, be sure that you're writing that stuff down so that you can go back and look over it. I sometimes have students who will get 100% on their My Math Lab homework, but then cannot do similar problems in written checkups or on exams. And so those are students who are just getting answers and they're not really focusing on learning. So be sure that you're focusing also on learning and not just going through the motions and getting answers. All right, what do students struggle with in this class? There are two big things that students struggle with in this class. The first is students that struggle alone too long. So students that'll tell me, oh, I spent 4 hours on this homework assignment and I couldn't get this done. That's not productive struggle. So don't struggle alone too much. After you've tried something, if you're not getting it after a couple tries and you're actually trying to use the help features and you're still not getting it, come get help. Seek help. Don't let that struggle become unproductive. So seek that out. You've got lots of ways to get help from me, from the Math Resource Center, but please seek that out. The other thing that students struggle with in this class is time. Either not enough time working on the content or not starting early enough. So my piece of advice about that is to start early in the week. Don't wait too late. Start early in the week, and also make sure that you have a plan for when you're going to work on this. So if you just think, oh, I'll work on it whenever I find time, that's probably not going to happen. But plan a time to work on your lessons for this class. How much time should you be spending? That's a pretty individual question. It depends on a lot of things. One is how much math you remember from your previous classes. Secondly, how well you tend to retain things when you learn any new thing. Thirdly, how well you want to do in this class. So the kind of general advice for a 5 credit hour class would be about 15 hours a week. But that can vary widely depending on the student. For some students, that is not enough. And for some students, that's plenty of time, more than enough. So if you are kind of struggling with trying to figure out whether you're working an appropriate amount on this class, come seek me out. One of the things that we can talk about is whether you're studying smart versus studying enough. So sometimes students are not studying well, they're introducing too many distractions, they're doing marathon study sessions, things like that that make their time unproductive. So if you feel like your time that you're putting in on the class is not proportional to the kind of grade that you're getting in the class, please come make an appointment with me and we can talk about that and make a plan so that you can be successful. All right, the other things that you should do, be sure you finish up this stuff in the Getting Started module and read the documents and do the assignments, and then get started on that math if you haven't already. Bye.